Flirting is not really an activity. It is a state of mind. Flirting is really about your charisma coming out. It's about your light. It's about you shining. That you're the ultimate authority on yourself and your value and who you are.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is flirting. Now, before you think this isn't for you, flirting is not just for single people. It helps keep the spark alive in relationships. And flirting doesn't have to have romantic overtones. It can be done just for fun to make people feel good. So we can all flirt more. And to show us how easy it is, we've invited love and success coach Luba Evans onto the show. Now, if you missed our last episode with Luba on the topic of feminine magic, make sure to check it out using the link below. Luba is the founder of the Galliana Meditation Retreat in upstate New York. Her programs teach women to call in their soulmate, awaken their feminine magic, and inspire devotion in the men they love. Welcome, Luba.
Hi, Amy. It is so exciting to be back at the Brilliance show. And yeah, our topic is just off the charts. I think it's one of the most popular topics of my audience, at least.
Well, I understand it because I hear so many women say, flirting just isn't me. I've tried it. I don't know how to do it. It makes me feel awkward. Help. What would you tell someone like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say that there are so many different types of flirting. And when we think that flirting necessarily has to be sexual or there absolutely has to be humor involved, that is really wrong. Flirting is just coming up into a light communication with another person, while that communication is not result-oriented, but rather process-oriented. Okay.
That is amazing, because when I hear people talk about flirting, the whole goal is to make him like you. And if you haven't made him like you, you failed. And you're saying that's the wrong attitude.
Yeah, and that's exactly the controversy of flirting, is that if you have a goal, you really cannot flirt. Right? That is exactly what blocks you. And just to make a comparison, which I think many people can relate to, there are certain things which are very hard to force. And in fact, those are the most magical things. It's very hard to force yourself to fall asleep, for example. It's hard to force yourself to have an orgasm. It's hard to force yourself to come up with a joke. And so it's hard to force yourself to be flirty. So forcing element has to be out of this picture.
One of the things that I think about a lot is, as you know, I have a preschool daughter. And when I drop her off at preschool, she plays with a lot of little boys. And from the age of 4, they are doing the little flirty behaviors that I recognize. So it must be natural.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you more. Actually, within some of my programs, I train women how to flirt. And one of the exercises is actually to come back to the innocence of childhood and into the lightness of childhood and playfulness, because flirting is all about playfulness. And one of the exercises is to imagine that we're in a sandbox and we're just children. And we start with something that makes everyone feel really awkward, which would be, I'm going to show you right now, going like this. Yeah, and then just speaking to each other without words, just with childish sounds. And that really loosens you up. It really allows you to let go of preconceived notions of yourself or how things should be or what you're supposed to be like. Just into that state of mind where it is easy to flirt. Flirting is not really an activity. It is a state of mind.
What I think that a lot of people struggle with, myself included, is when you see someone you really like, or you're on a date, or you're trying to flirt on an online dating site, you feel so serious because you want to impress him, and you don't want to do anything that's going to turn him off, and showing him your silly side is so vulnerable. So how can you get rid of the stress that makes you seize up when it comes to flirting?
Well, first of all, not just with flirting, but with any kind of trying to make any kind of impression on anyone in your life, rule number one is you are playing it out for your own entertainment. You have to enjoy it first. And so when you come with that kind of premise, let's say online, you're starting to type something to some guy that attracted to your attention, or whatever, anybody who attracted your attention, just make it fun for yourself. See if you can surprise yourself. And it doesn't really matter if it works and for another person. And if they didn't get your personal style of joking, maybe they're just in a completely different universe. And maybe you're not really meant to click together, so it's all right.
One of the things that I've often wondered about is whether or not flirting is even necessary. Can you just cut to the chase and say what you want and see if it works out? But what I'm hearing you say is that actually flirting reveals a side of your personality that he needs to know. If he doesn't like your silly side, if he doesn't like the side of you that's having fun in your own way, then the relationship's never going to go anywhere anyway. So flirting is necessary. Is that right?
I would say that flirting in its expanded sense, which is having a great time, enjoying yourself, flowing with your words, smiling at another person, that is definitely necessary, not only part of attraction, relationship, but part of life. And as we know in Cuba, for example, this is how people operate on the street. A person of any age, they could be in their 80s, a woman is walking on the street and she's kind of got her swag on, and all the guys in the street are encouraging her, making her feel desirable, making her feel like a bombshell with those pretty innocent, flirty remarks. And it's a whole culture of joy. And the same thing is happening in Brazil. So our Western culture is often very constricted, and we're very afraid often to acknowledge each other's beauty and each other's sexiness. But that is exactly what gives the juice. That's exactly what gives the enjoyment of life. So yeah, I feel like it's necessary.
One of the things that I think about is that it's one thing to be in a culture where flirting is all around you, but here flirting can seem to only take place in very specific context. It has to take place between a single man and a single woman where there's interest. And if you flirt in the wrong place at the wrong time, let's say you flirt at work, it can be taken the wrong way and you can get in trouble. So there's a sense that flirting here actually is a dangerous activity. If you flirt with the wrong person, like you flirt with a married man, you're in trouble. So how can we navigate that? How can we give ourselves the permission to flirt when we're not necessarily sure whether or not we're going to pay for it?
Yeah, I can definitely see that there could be some consequences of flirting, let's say, with a married man. But at the same time, if there is no result orientation, if there is nothing that is supposed to come out of flirting, it's just a process. It's almost like smiling at somebody, right? Is it okay to smile at a married man? And like, how far do we take it? Well, first of all, there are different indicators if a person is flirting with you. For example, this is a really great tip. You can watch their feet. If the feet are turned towards you, that means the person is inclined to flirt with you. If the feet are turned away from you, that means they're kind of on the way out. They're escaping the situation. They're fighting the situation. You can also look at the hips. Again, if the hips are facing you, that means they are engaged in the interaction. And if the hips are aligned in a way as if a person is out of the situation, that means it's time to kind of take it easy and fade out with your flirting.
Yeah, so if you give it a go, if you try to flirt with someone and then you just pay attention to these body signals, you can leave before you've made too much of a mistake. But then I'm using the whole results-oriented philosophy. It's not a mistake if you said something to make the other person feel good that you enjoyed saying. There can't be any mistake. That's a good thing, always.
Exactly, especially considering all the communication that's happening right now through abbreviations, icons, and like LOL and OMG and all these different devices. People are gasping for a live, smart, fast, playful communication, natural communication with each other. And so, in fact, if you are able to come in this way, in terms of your communication, you're going to stand out in every situation, not only in dating, but also even presenting something at a work meeting. And the flirting doesn't necessarily have to be with one person, it can be with the whole crowd. Flirting is really about your charisma coming out, it's about your light, it's about you shining your light.
So what if you're not a fast thinker? And I used to have this problem all the time. I always enjoyed hanging around with groups of boys who would banter and they would just throw one-liners back and forth. And I never got a word in because it was all I could do to keep up. So what if you're one of these people who doesn't think fast on their feet and has a really hard time being spontaneous? Is there a way to plan out your flirty lines so that you're not caught flat-footed when the opportunity comes?
Yeah, I would say that no. I would say that nothing should come in preset, but there are ways to make it happen on the spot, and I will give you that secret. So, what you can do, you can train yourself to talk about anything. And now I'm going to be talking more about sexual flirting. So you can talk about anything as if you're talking about some kind of hot, passionate, pretty sexual encounter. For example, we were just sitting, we just went out with a bunch of friends to a restaurant, and we created a game. Each person, each friend had to ask or offer a cup of tea to another person in a way that they were flirting. So, yeah, and we decided it's going to be such a great game, you know, if a bunch of people got together and wanted to learn how to flirt. So, for example, one person said, so she took this cup and she looked at me and she said, "You're thirsty. Have a drink." Right? You
That's
see,
fabulous.
yeah, you don't have to say anything smart or funny necessarily. But what is important is to see another person as a sexual being, as a desirable being, and to communicate that vision to that person as you're speaking to them. It's also important to perceive different things in life, different processes in life as exciting sexual processes full of life force. For example, here's a cup. The cup is full. The cup is full. And then this cup is nice to touch, you know, just being very, very present to the gifts of life. That already allows you just to be in your charisma and be flirty and speak about anything as if it's some kind of sexual prelude to something incredible.
That reminds me of one of the strategies I often suggest, which is if you're getting nervous and you're getting stressed and you're getting in your head, focus on physical sensations. So touch your arm and feel how soft your dress is, or feel your feet in your shoes, or really taste whatever you're eating, and really focused on what you're feeling, tasting, hearing, and smelling, and even describe those things. And
Absolutely.
that awakens perhaps that sexual passion, because ultimately what is sexuality? It's physical, it's the senses, it's not the head, and it's not the cleverness.
Absolutely. And senses are our portals into the world. It's like our senses are like our interfaces, you know, and the sharper they are, the more exciting of a play we can have with the universe. But also talking about, let's say, this cup, the situation, how can we be flirty just talking about a glass of water or a glass of tea, a cup of tea? Well, you can also say, "Oh, I'm so thirsty. Can you give me some water? I haven't been watered yet." You know, like a rose, for example. And that will be flirty. So it's not about being clever. It's really just about being playful.
That takes so much confidence, though. It's a
Mm.
bigger personality than a lot of us bring to a first date, where we want to do everything right and we don't want to do anything wrong. And flirting takes courage. It means putting ourselves out there in a way that's quite blatant. He knows our intentions. How do you get the confidence to be
Yeah,
that kind
that's
of person?
such a great question. That is such a great question. And I have to tell you, my boyfriend, when I met him for the first time on the first date, he had me at one sentence. He just said, "Good evening." And I knew, I just knew that he is very confident, just like exactly what you were saying. So, yeah, where do you get this confidence? This is such a wonderful question. And because at the end of the day, that's exactly where it all comes down to. You have to be confident knowing who you are in the world, like connected to your charisma. And especially if we're talking about women, feminine charisma. And for that, you have to believe that you're desirable, that when you're coming up to somebody that you don't even know, right? You have to believe that by default, they're actually going to love you. And that could be a very challenging thing, especially if you grew up with some kind of notion that you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, that you can bother people. Let's say your parents gave you a message that you're bothering them, or that you're too much, or that you're not thin enough and therefore cannot be desirable. So all of those ideas that we have about ourselves are really mm, overwhelming our love blueprint sometimes, and making it, or as I call it also, soulmate beacon, and the beacon loses, the dims out, the light dims out. And so in order for you to have that light shine very bright through you, those notions have to be healed. And it, unfortunately, it's not a one moment process, but that's why we have so many tools right now within personal development to address our primal trauma, of being abandoned, not receiving the kind of love that we needed, not receiving the kind of confirmation from the parents and siblings, peers, ex-lovers, that we are great and desirable. But that is our journey. That is our heroine's journey, to come back to complete faith that no matter what's happened, everything was a lesson. And that at the end of the day, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel your own body, you come into the deep, deep, deep appreciation of what this body, this vessel is doing for you, how beautiful it is in its own imperfect way. And comparing yourself to nature, who is always imperfect. When you look at a mountain, for example, you see, if you look closer, you'll see how imperfect it is. And yet it is so beautiful. So this whole, I think that our enemy in flirting and in deep self-confidence is this Western desire for perfection. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, because one of the hardest things is to approach a man, whether it's online or walking down the street or in a restaurant at a date, and believe that he loves you. He just doesn't know you yet. He thinks you're amazing. You just got to get to know each other, because the immediate assumption most of us have is, he doesn't know me. He doesn't like me. I have to convince him that I'm worth his time and his energy. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important. One of the things that I see, though, is it's sometimes easier to get that confidence when you're in your 20s and you're foolish and you're a lot more playful. But then you get older, and especially you hit your 40s and 50s and you go up. It's very hard to assume that a man will love you and want to get to know you, because that playfulness has kind of gone from your life. By the time you're 40, there's a lot of practicality. There's a lot of serious things to think about, and you're not as playful as you were in your 20s. So it can be so much harder. So does our flirting style need to change as we get older?
I feel that It doesn't have to change at all. My mom is 76 years old and she flirts with everyone on the street. Not at all. On the contrary, I think the victory of spirit is to continue the playfulness and to do whatever it takes, as we become older, to be in our soul, to dance, to sing, to do creative things, to play with ourselves. Otherwise, life is just very boring and there is no juice to it. The practical things at the end of the day are just a survival mentality. So we should try to transcend, that survival mentality into the mentality of really enjoying life. And what can also help with that a lot is sisterhood, and women can support each other in terms of giving the message, seeing each other in the highlight, seeing each other beautiful, empowering each other. And I feel like that is very, very important as you go into a more mature adulthood. And also definitely doing things, crazy things, pushing yourself, surprising yourself, knowing that you are a spontaneous being, that you are a playful being, that you're a being that has a great entertainment value. And why is it? And by the way, that the entertainment value for a woman becomes more and more important as a woman ages, because certain other values, like being this desirable animal, for example, that value can start going kind of down, right? But then another value has to kick in, and that is the entertainment value, which can only expand with your experience, you know? Like old
Absolutely.
wine, like good red wine, like old wine is much more precious because it's been around.
I love what you said about sisterhood, because I think those are the people we can start practicing our flirting skills with immediately. So
Mm-hmm.
if we have our woman that we talked with at the beginning of the show who says, I can't flirt, I feel stupid, start flirting with your girlfriends, have them flirt back, give each other feedback, because, we can make our girlfriends feel good, and our girlfriends love to flirt. So I think that's a really good starting place.
Absolutely. I love that. And also, I'm a big advocate of when you're in the mood, just flirt with everyone. And if you're just smiling and flirting and sharing your good attitude towards life, you don't have to be afraid that there are going to be some consequences or somebody will take it in the wrong way. So they'll take it in the wrong way. So what? you know their opinion of you should not change your opinion of yourself. And that is, by the way, what the whole roadmap to sovereignty is about. Taking your power back from different places is specifically about the fact that you're the ultimate authority on yourself and your value and who you are. And if you want some reflection in other people to make sure you're on the right track, you can choose those mirrors consciously and say, all right, this person, if I feel like I need this kind of feedback, I'm going to go to this person. If I need feedback whether I gained weight, I'm going to go to my friend who is really looking at me very precisely in that specific area. If I want to get feedback whether my heart is open or not, this is a friend I'm going to go to just to check in, to see, how I come off. But all those other people, I didn't choose them to be my mirrors. They're living in their own worlds. Their impression of me has nothing to do with me or my self-worth.
That's wonderful. Well, we're coming to an end. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about Luba's work and what she teaches, go to yourbrilliance.org/magic. That's yourbrilliance.org/magic. Thank you, Luba, for coming onto the show. And is there one last message you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I just wanted to say that don't be afraid, to get dirty. Don't be afraid to be imperfect. Don't be afraid to be organic. The earth is organic. Nature is curvy. It's unexpected. It has nothing to do with straight lines. The future is feminine, and she's got curves.
Thank you so much. I'm Amy Waterman for yourbrilliance.com, and thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.